All right. Hello everyone, short video on domain and range. Let's go ahead and do a quick review on this. I just want to show a few things that we may have not showed thoroughly in class. I will be brief as possible. Domain and range. Again, let's simply show a relation of numbers. And that relationship could be, we're going to express it in brackets. 2, 4 is one ordered pair. We can say 1, 5, 6, 7, and we can stop there. And then we close our brackets up. The domain are the x values. So the x values here will be our domain. And we express that as domain, followed by a pair of by a colon, and then we, in bracket, because it is a set of numbers, and we just simply list those numbers, separated by commas, and close the set with the closing bracket. The range values are the y values, 4, 5, and 7 in this case. So we have range, followed by a colon. We open the bracket because it is a set, and we just simply list those items and we close the set. That's how we list them. They can give you a relationship, and then we have whether it is the domain values and the range values. Quickly, is this a function or not a function? Well, a lot of you want to start graphing and doing this and plotting. Again, there's 4 different ways that we know how to tell whether a relation is a function or not. In this case, look at the domain. Do the x values repeat? We have a 2, a 1, and a 6. They do not repeat. Guess what? We have a function here. Another way to express the domain and range of a set of numbers or relation of numbers is when that number is graphed. Let's go ahead and draw a simple graph, and we'll start with a line. I will draw a red line here. Let me make my line a little bit thicker, just so you can see it. And that's my line. Now I want to find out what values of the domain and the range are included in that line. Well, let's take a look. If this is our x-axis, let me just load that a little bit. Sorry. Oh gosh. What did I do this for? If we look at our x-axis, what values, or where does, if you were to stretch this line out to infinity on both ends, how much of the x-axis would it cover? Well, in this case, it would cover the entire x-axis. So the domain, the x values, would be all real numbers. All real numbers. Same thing goes for the range. If you were to extend that out into infinity and this into infinity, you would cover all of the values that are on the y-axis, and then your range would be, again, all real numbers. Now, that's not always the case. Let's look at another example quickly. Here we look at a graph. Let me go ahead and draw in a parabola. Now you do need a little bit of information. That point right there, we'll call it 3. That is, y is at 3. That is the x, this is the y. If you extend this parabola out to infinity and that parabola out to infinity, it will span, it will cover the entire x-axis. So the domain for this graph, the domain, the x values, are all real numbers. Now let's look at the range, the y values. If this were, let's say, -3, Is -3 anywhere on that curve? Nope. Neither is the origin, neither is 1, neither is 2 in this case. But 3 is, and it does include 3. When we talk about the range, we are talking about the y values. So we have to say y, and in this case, let's do a little test. That would be 4, let's say, 5, 6, all of the values that are greater are on this. So the y's will be greater than or equal to 3. The range is y is greater than or equal to 3. All the values for y that are greater than or equal to. That can work like this. If we were to go the other way, let's pick another color just to clear things up. And we had a parabola that did this. And again, let's just assume that it did right over there at -3. That would be -3. Well then, for this one, the range would be y, and the y's that are less than or equal to -3. All the y's that are less than. There's the other example where this is, if we looked over here where we have 2, and we graph it over here, and we have our parabola coming this way. Now, this, as it extends into infinity, that's the y values. These are the x values. These will cover, as it expands out, all of the y. So the range is pretty straightforward. The range is all the real numbers. Now, the domain, the x values, have a little bit of a trick here, because none of this is domain. None of that is domain. Let me, hold on a minute. None of this is domain. The domain begins right there at 2. So here we have to say that our domain are all the values for x, where x is greater than or equal to 2. We can go ahead now, and if we erase this, clean that up a little bit, draw my line, and we say that's -4, for example, and we have another curve that goes this way. Well, on this side, that domain for this curve right here would be the domain, I'll put it up over here. This is all the domain where x and the values are less than, the x's are less than or equal to -4. And that's the domain for these values, and the range would be all the real numbers over there. I think that wraps up everything I want to cover. Let me just take a quick, oh yes, one last little thing. Hopefully the batteries will last. One last short review. Mapping, I don't want that. We're going to map something 1, 2, 3, 4. We can go -6, -7, -8, -9. When we map and we go 1 to 1, one value of the domain, again, this is always the domain, this is always the range. We go this way, across and across. We have a function here. This is a function. Now, if we were to have another number, let's say 5, and that 5 would go to -9, this would still be a function, because guess what? We have it, the functionality or function is determined by the domain values. Now, if we were to come over now and have an x value shoot down to another here, well, guess what? Because there are 2 lines coming out of that domain value 1, this is no longer a function. That is no longer a function because we have 2 values there. Again, this is a short review. We did a lot of this stuff in class. A lot of it's in the notebooks. There won't be an issue with anything. I'm going through the notebook as a quick little scan, and I'm pretty comfortable. I also posted some solutions. I will create another video over the weekend for some solved problems so you can help out. Again, study over the weekend. Any questions you have, bring them in on Monday and Tuesday so we can review. You have a notebook check and a test on the block days next week. Thanks for watching.